Welcome to A to Z with B, an innovative talk show with Beatrice Tony Bailey. As your host, B will be discussing today's hottest topics and insights into different faiths, cultures, and religions. Now sit back, put your feet up, and let's see what's buzzing with B.
Hello, and welcome to A to Z with B. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Beatrice Tony Bailey, and I am your television host this evening. And this particular episode of A to Z with B is sponsored by Gary Kara and Gary Sidhu. Both are real estate specialists in the Roseville area. In addition, they are proud members of the Sikh community and have agreed to sponsor this particular episode. And if you have any questions, and I mean any questions regarding real estate needs, you want to call both of these Garys. Their contact number is 916-349-1000. Now, the purpose of this particular episode is the second part of a two-part episode on the Sikh community. It's not Sikh, it's Sikh community. And there's been so much information. It's really a strong desire on my part to educate my viewers and the general public on information regarding this particular community. And you could not do it any better than to have Professor Bindra here. I'm going to introduce him in a second. Now, what we're going to cover on part two, we're going to talk about famous Sikhs and trailblazers, misconceptions and hate crimes. There's been a lot of misconceptions. If you wear a turban, you've got to be a terrorist. And then efforts that are currently underway that are trying to improve cultural awareness. Now, Professor Bindra has a PhD from UC Berkeley. He's an entomologist. That's what he studied. That's his which is bugs, by the way. He likes the creepy crawly bugs, except during our first episode, he told us that he really was interested in pesticide and things of that sort. He has been able to teach in Nigeria and the Sudan, Liberia, Indonesia, and he's an ex-board member of the Renaissance Society, and currently he is a trustee at the West Sacramento Temple. And welcome to our show, Dr. Bindra.
Thank you, B. I should make one correction that I have been trying to develop integrated pest management systems for agricultural crops, which utilizing the minimum quantity of pesticides, minimizing the use of pesticides. Right.
But you're retired now, aren't you?
Yes, I'm retired from entomology, and I'm retired from United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. Right.
And during our first part of the episode, I asked him, I said, why bugs? He said he was fascinated by the honeybee. And when he said that, of course, he endeared himself to me immediately. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to make sure that we're all back on the same page. We showed you some information. I'm not going to make the assumption that you saw the episode part one last week. So we're going to go over some basic things. Let's start with looking at a quick, short video entitled Meeting the Sikhs.
Meet the Sikhs. There are nearly 100,000 in northern and central California. They are most numerous in the Marysville-Yuba City region, 1 of every 10 residents. So a number of cultural and religious events are held there, including a big annual parade that draws Sikhs from many places in our state and beyond. The Sikhs came from the Punjab, a land of 5 rivers in the northwestern area of the Indian subcontinent. It's the site of one of the oldest civilizations in the world. Distinctive in appearance, they are followers of a religion dating back more than 500 years. The word Sikh is believed to be derived from the Punjabi word for disciple. Founded by the Guru Nanak, Sikhism is a religion in itself, but has some aspects in common with other religions. Sikhs believe in a supreme being, respect other religions, pledge equality for women, and most followers don't use alcohol or tobacco. The Sikh creed of Khalsa calls for hair and beard to be unshorn with a comb in it, knee-length breeches, a steel bracelet on the right wrist, and carrying a saber called a kirpan. Men's hair is usually kept under a turban with a V in front. Sikhs have been in America for well over a century. They are not the first Asian Americans, but arrived about the same time as the first Japanese in the late 1800s and early 1900s and faced similar discrimination, including an Asian Exclusion Act. The first Sikh temple was built in Stockton. Thousands of Sikh men worked on the Western Pacific Railroad and in the timber industry and agriculture. Sikhs have fought in every American war in the last century. Because few Punjabi women were initially able to join them, a number of Sikhs married Mexicans, most of whom were also recent immigrants. Another wave of Sikhs came after the partition of India in the 1940s. Changes in immigration law in the past decades have brought the most recent group, including business and medical professionals.
Mil mere Pritama, mil mere Pritama.
While concentrated in Northern California, you'll find Sikhs in all walks of American life. But their story as American immigrants is left out of most textbooks. Because of their attire, they remain distinctive, while determined to share in the American dream.
Now, Professor, can you tell our viewers who was the founder or founders of the Sikh religion?
Yes, the Sikh religion was founded by Guru Nanak, who was born into a Hindu family in 1469, but did not accept Hinduism. He was followed by 9 other gurus, each of whom was chosen by his predecessor. And during a period of 169 years, these 10 gurus nurtured and developed the religion of Sikhism fully. And the last human guru, Guru Gobind Singh, said that after him there would be no human guru, but instead the holy book, which had been developed and completed by then, by 1708, would be the holy book and would be the eternal living guru of the Sikhs.
Well, how would a person become a Sikh?
Well, a Sikh believes in one supreme God, one universal God. A Sikh also believes in the 10 gurus and their teachings, which are in the Sri Guru Granth Sahib. So anyone who starts believing in these becomes a Sikh.
Well, now, can you be a white person and be a Sikh?
Sure, there are at least 5,000 white people who have themselves changed their religion and become Sikhs. And they all wear white clothes, and even the women wear white turbans.
Well, now, if I become a Sikh, I'm not converting yet, but if I become a Sikh, would I have to give up my religion?
Not really, you see. You can believe in your own religion, and simultaneously you can believe in the basic principles of Sikhism. And however, if you want to be a what is called an initiated or a baptized Sikh, then at that stage you give up your previous religion.
Well, then in so many ways it seems to me like Sikhism really is an interfaith religion.
Yes, it is very much interfaith in nature, because it contains not only the hymns written by the Sikh gurus, but also by about 36 other persons, many of whom were Muslim Sufis, and others were Hindu of high caste, or low vocations, you know, or of the lowest castes in the caste system prevalent in India. And in that sense, it is an interfaith religion. And the Holy Book was compiled during the lifetime of the Gurus themselves, so it has great authenticity to it. And it is probably the most highly venerated holy book among all the religions of the world.
Okay. Now, how would I identify a Sikh?
Well, on the street, if you find somebody who is wearing a kada on the wrist, you see, right wrist, and or his middle name is, or last name is Singh in case of men, or Kaur in case of women, then they may be Sikhs. But if you find somebody who is wearing a beard and a turban, and the boys are wearing patka, a small turban, then they are certainly Sikhs. In addition, some young Sikhs may wear the Ek Onkar or One God sign and the khanda, the insignia of the Sikhs, as a necklace or on their T-shirt or other property like vehicles.
Well, now, and also isn't there the 5 Ks? Tell us briefly about the 5 Ks.
Yes. The Sikhs, especially the ones who have been initiated, they have to wear the 5 articles of faith. These are called 5 Ks because they all in the Punjabi language start with Kakka or K letter. And the first one is the kesh or case, the long hair or uncut hair. The second one is a kanga, which is a small comb which is placed in the hair on the head all the time. The third one is a kada, on the right hand, something like this.
Could it be, now you mentioned before that it could be steel or iron. Would gold be inappropriate? Is that too showy?
Gold is showy, but there are Sikhs who wear gold bracelet. The ultimate purpose is to remind oneself that you are like a slave of God and you should be doing things right. It's just a reminder of that. And the fourth is the underpants, which are quite baggy, and the fifth one and the last one is the kirpan, which is the small sword.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
These are the 5 Ks.
Now, what percentage, you mentioned that that people wear turbans, what percentage of the people that wear a turban are Sikh?
Well, in America, it is only the Sikhs who wear turbans. So 99.99% of those who wear turbans in America are Sikhs.
Okay.
Yeah.
In an effort to continue to inform our viewers, and that we're going to show you 2 slides. One is by the Department of Justice, which shows the typical head coverings of a Muslim. So I want you to look at that for just a moment or so. Okay. Now we're going to show you a slide of typical Sikh head coverings. Okay. You can see if you take the time, there's significant difference between both of these head covering styles. Now, why is this particularly important to take into consideration, Professor, since 9/11?
You must have, you know, audience, you must have noticed, you know, that the head covering in case of the Muslim is like the yaramulke or the skull cap, which is entirely different from that of the turban. Now, since it's 9/11, you know, Osama bin Laden and his associates, Ayman al-Zawahiri and the Taliban have been shown so many times by the media, flooded, you know, the TV people have flooded with their pictures. And because nothing is included in the school textbooks about the Sikhs, you see. So ignorant people have been ignorant about who these turbaned people are, and they misconceive them as brothers, sisters of Osama bin Laden, and many of us have been called as Osama. Yes, and told to go home, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. In this country, racism, the obvious divide with racism is certainly black and white because the history of our country, but it's just so pervasive in so many other areas, and I have a strong desire to just to try to break down some of these barriers, which are really based primarily upon ignorance and a lack of information. So that's one of the reasons that I definitely have the doctor on the show. He's a professor, but he's also a doctor, so I call him like Dr. Professor. Now that everyone's on the same page, you've seen a short video on meeting the Sikhs. We've brought you up to speed on what we briefly talked about during part one. But we're talking about minorities, and like so many minorities that came to the United States, when the Sikhs came, and you tell us in a second, when they first started coming over, a party wasn't exactly thrown for them, right? You didn't have, there wasn't a parade or balloons or anything, confetti thrown out the window?
That's a good way of saying that they were subjected to all the harshness, you know, admissible under the law. Right. You see, we had, you see, they were beaten up and asked to vacate their homes at night, and in 1907 and 1908 in Washington D.C., in Washington State, and in Oregon, and in California, even, you know, in Marysville, and here in Sacramento also. You see, there were firings and there were beatings.
Riots, were there actual riots?
Yes, there were riots against the Sikhs. They were called Hindus at that time. Because they had come from India, you see. And there was a law passed that the Asians cannot come as immigrants to USA. Another law was the land law, which prohibited aliens to buy or lease land. So they had to just work as laborers. They could not, you know, become owners of land. Although some of them married Mexican women and had children and tried to buy property in their names, you see.
I think that was covered in the video on meeting the Sikhs. Yeah, that's something that I learned. So I mean, they had to play the hand that was dealt them. So they just decided another a way to address the situation. Now, there were some really key Sikhs that I really want to go over in this particular episode, particularly when it came to education. Did someone pop up immediately?
Yes. Jwala Singh was a person who came to San Francisco in 1908. He met his friend, and they jointly leased 500 acres of land in Hartsville near Stockton, and they grew potatoes, and they became very famous as potato growers, and in the Indian community they were known as potato kings, you see. And Jwala Singh was very much for educating people from India, so he contacted the UC Berkeley and underwrote 6 scholarships, which he named after the last guru of the Sikhs, and these were the Guru Gobind Singh Educational Scholarship. Under that, in 1912, 6 scholars selected from India came, and they were provided board and lodging and books and all facilities so that they could study.
Were they required to study any particular area?
Subject, no. They were not. There was no restriction of that kind. And so, unfortunately, this scholarship could not continue for long because many of these Indian immigrants here, or rather, you know, the workers, you know, they decided to go back to India to overthrow the British government, because at that time India was ruled by the Britain,
right.
And the British did not provide any support to the East Indians here when they were being troubled by the locals, you see. And also they back home, you see, Indian farmers and everybody was treated very badly by the British. So they wanted India to be free. So more than 3,000 of them went back to India to fight against the British to overthrow them. Soon after the First World War began.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was his Jwala Singh's contribution, you see. He led one of these very large groups to India.
Oh, it's wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Now also I know that your culture and your faith has a very strong presence and history in the military. Now who was the first Sikh person that had some kind of prominence in the military?
Yes, one gentleman whose name was Bhagat Singh Thind. Bhagat Singh Thind, you see. He came to Seattle in 1913, and he enrolled at UC Berkeley as a student, and he met his expenses by working in the lumber mills. And he was also influenced by the freedom movement, which I mentioned a couple of minutes ago.
The freedom movement in India?
Yeah, but he decided to stay here, and he instead joined the United States Army.
And he was welcomed with welcome arms, open arms?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
He had no rights here. He was just an alien at that time, not a citizen. Yet he was allowed to join the army, which he did in 1917 to fight against the Nazi Hitler, you know, during World War I, and that happened in 1917. But in 1918, the World War ended, and he was discharged very honorably. After that, he tried to become a citizen, but he had lot of trouble. He was his citizenship granted in Washington was challenged by one of the government groups, and the case went up to the Supreme Court. And in the Supreme Court, his attorney argued that Mr. Bhagat Singh Thind was white because he was a Caucasian, you know, and also he should be therefore granted citizenship. But in a previous case of Mr. Ozawa, the court had said that Mr. Ozawa, a Japanese, was white but not Caucasian. They wanted anyone to be both Caucasian and white before he would be given citizenship under the 1790 law. And therefore, the court in the case of Bhagat Singh Thind also decided that he cannot be granted citizenship, because if in the public the common man will not consider him as white, you know, even though he is a Caucasian. So then he continued to anyway stay, and it was only many years later, it was in 1923 that Supreme Court ruled against him, but it was in 1936, 13 years later, that he got citizenship, and this time he got it only because the New York State had passed a law that the veterans can be given citizenship, and he was a veteran. So he took a long time to become citizen and enjoy the benefits thereof.
He's pretty dedicated. Now, as I was talking about earlier, there is the tradition of serving in the military, and we have a slide we're going to show of some really key people that are in the military. Tell us a little bit about some of the hoops, for lack of a better term, that the Sikhs had to go through with regard to wearing a turban, not wearing a turban, women cutting their hair, not cutting their hair.
Yeah. You know, initially, as you have seen in the picture of Bhagat Singh Thind, you see, he wore a turban, he had a beard. Similarly, up to 1986, other Sikhs who wore turbans, who had beard, were allowed to join the army and serve in the army.
With their turbans?
with the turban. And there are picture of three of them who have returned recently as colonels, you know. And however, since 1986, the law requires that people should have short hair. And therefore, some Sikhs have joined the army after cutting their hair. And you have probably seen the pictures of two gentlemen. One of them gave his life in Iraq and the other in Afghanistan.
That was fairly recently. I mean,
that was one of them was very recently. Yes. And in addition, you know, there were two Sikhs who were allowed to join medical schools with the promise that they will be ultimately taken up into the army.
Is this Captain Kasi and Ratan?
Right, right. However, when they were to be posted, you know, after all their training and graduation, they were told to remove their turban and to cut off their beard. So this they did not want to do. So they took up their case through Sikh Coalition and other Sikh activist organizations. And ultimately, it is the Defense Minister or Home Minister, our Secretary, he granted a special permission to these two people to serve in the army with their you know, turban and beard. In addition, you know, there was one gentleman who has been allowed to serve in the army.
Yeah, I think I was going to mention that.
Because he had special skill. He knew Punjabi and he knew Hindi. These were two very important languages in Pakistan and India, and therefore he was granted permission to serve in the army.
Okay. Now, moving out of the area of the military onto politics, I understand that back in 1956 there was a Sikh congressman who really was a trailblazer. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about him?
Yes. His name was Dalip Singh Sond. He was born in Amritsar district like the other two gentlemen I mentioned. They all came from Amritsar district, you see. And he was born in 1899. In 1920, he had graduated with mathematics in India and came to UC Berkeley for his higher studies, where in 1922 he received his master's degree in mathematics. And in 1924, he got his PhD, doctorate degree in mathematics also. However, unfortunately, because of the discriminatory laws at that time, he couldn't get any job here. And he went to the Imperial Valley, where he had some friends in farming. And there, his first job was to work as a foreman of cotton pickers, you know. He did not wear a turban, and I am not sure whether this was because at UC Berkeley there was a ragging done of the Sikhs and unwind turbans, you see, in 1921.
Was that a campaign, Unwind the Turban?
Unwind the Turban was a campaign. Under that title, Unwind Turban, there was an article published in the San Francisco Chronicle, you see, in 1921. Yes. So I don't know whether he shed his, stopped wearing his turban because of that incident or for some other reasons before that. So, but that's a very hot and inhospitable area, you know. It's extremely hot, the Imperial Valley. Anyway, he worked hard there, and he had, you know, incidentally met a Czechoslovakian family. When he was coming, he traveled on the same ship as the Czechoslovakian family did from England to New York, and they got acquainted. However, after he reached California and the Czechoslovakian family also reached LA, they lost track of each other. And but accidentally, he met that family at a church where he went to deliver a lecture, because he was in the Toastmasters, he was in the Lions Club, and he used to read a lot and deliver lectures. And there he met that family again. So the acquaintance was renewed, and he fell in love with about 10 years younger to her, Marian Kosa, the girl. who was just about 11 years old on the ship, you see, when they traveled together. And he decided, he made up his mind to marry her, but how could an alien with a brown skin, you know, marry a white woman who was a citizen? So when he married her in 1928, his wife Marianne lost her citizenship.
Wow.
Yes, that was the law. And then anyway, they both worked hard and you see, ran agriculture, grew agricultural crops, especially lettuce and so on, and made some money. And then he went into, also in addition, he got a distributorship of fertilizers and continued lecturing, you know, build up his base. And he worked at that time still, you know, in 30s. He was, he could not become a citizen. He wrote a book at that time which is called My Mother India, which described how India was made poor by the Britishers, by the British rulers. And after that, he worked very hard collecting funds and lobbying, you know, for what later on became the Lewis-Seller Act of 1946. And it is this act which gave the Filipinos and the East Indians who were already here the right to naturalize as American citizens.
That's wonderful. Well, it seems that obviously he was a trailblazer. Now, did he inspire any modern day Punjabis?
Yeah, you see, first of all, I think our audience should know that he could become citizen only in 1949. And immediately he joined the Democratic Party. He became a leader in the Democratic Party. And he fought an election for judge. He was elected judge, but he was not allowed to serve because he had not completed 1 year. Then the position again fell vacant, and he was this time allowed to serve, and he served as a judge from 1952 to 56. And in 56, he was elected to the House of Representatives from the 29th Congressional District, which includes Riverside County and the Imperial County. And there he did excellent work as a result of, but his political career came to an end because he suffered a severe stroke and became disabled.
Well, now, and in the interest of time, we'll talk about, there's two high-level officials now in the United States that are Punjabis, a woman and a gentleman. You want to tell us briefly where they are?
Yes. In recent years, you know, people of Punjab origin or Punjabis have been trying to get into politics. And two of them have become governors. One of them is Bobby Jindal, the governor of Louisiana, who was the youngest governor when he became the governor. And recently, last November, Nikki Haley, or Nikki Randhawa Haley, or Nikki Kaur Randhawa Haley, as you may like to call her, she became she was elected as governor of South Carolina. And now she is the youngest governor in this country. And they both have mentioned, and many others who have been elected to other civic positions, that they have received a lot of inspiration from the case of Dalip Singh Sand.
Well, he certainly was a pioneer. Now, two other areas we want to cover before we're through with our particular episode is hate crimes. And we talked briefly about the increase of hate crimes on Sikhs after 9/11 because of the confusion regarding the headwear, the head covering, and the ignorance on the part of the people that assumed that if you've got a turban, you got to be, you know, Osama's cousin, and that. Why is it so hard to actually pinpoint that it is a hate crime?
Well, I think until the culprit or the assailant is caught and admits, or there is evidence that somebody has seen the assailant using such words which indicate that this is out of hatred, how do you know that it was a hate crime or not? You see. Now, of course, even though all the assailants would say that they are targeting the Muslims, you know, because of Osama bin Laden and his people, yet it is the Sikhs who have suffered the most.
Right, because of their visual appearance.
Because of their visual appearance, the turban and the patka. You know, in the Bay Area, there was a study recently of bullying, and they found that bullying among Sikh boys is 69%. That 69% of the Sikh boys are bullied, as compared with a 30% bullying rate in the non-Sikhs, you see.
We've got a couple slides we're going to show you. One talks about two gentlemen who in Sacramento recently, earlier part this year, one was shot and killed immediately, and eventually another was succumbed to his injuries. And there's also other people Sikhs who have been brutalized, cab drivers, minding their own business, that were mistakenly thought to be, you know, terrorists. And that, again, it gets back to education and assumptions and half-truths and shadows and things of that sort. So hopefully my program and other kind of programs will be able to help people ferret out the truth. And plus there's so much information that is available on the internet. Now tell us a little bit, when we're talking about cultural awareness, about the CAR Foundation. We know that CAR is the religious name given to Sikh women, but what is the CAR Foundation all about?
The CAR Foundation is trying to raise awareness about the Sikhs, especially about the women, you know, and it is a non-profit organization, and it has done an excellent job in producing this video you are probably going to show.
We're going to show that video right now. It's called A Cultural Safari.
Oh, hi there, and welcome to the Core Cultural Safari,
where we help you discover different cultures of the world.
We're cultural explorers. Come explore many worlds, far and near from your home. You'll love to learn about ways not your own. The more we know, the more we grow on a cultural safari. Each culture is full of amazing things, from the clothes that we wear to the songs we sing. Curiosity is all you need to bring on a cultural safari. On a cultural safari.
Learning about different parts of the world is a lot of fun. And the more we know and understand about each other, the more we accept people just the way they are.
When we say culture, we're talking about food, clothing, life events, art and music, holidays and festivals, and beliefs and traditions.
And here is the great thing with culture. The more you know, the more you want to know.
More and more and more and more and more. Sorry.
There are a lot of cultures out there to explore, like the one we're going to talk about today.
Today we're going to explore the Sikh American culture. Many Americans pronounce it as Sikh, and that's okay too.
Did you know that the word Sikh means student, a seeker of knowledge?
Sikhism originated in the northwest part of India, known as Punjab, which means land of the 5 rivers. Sikhs are members of the world's 5th largest religion, known as Sikhism. Their basic beliefs include living a life of devotion, labor, and charity.
Sikhism began a little over 500 years ago.
That's right about the time Christopher Columbus discovered the New World.
Sikhs have been in America for over 100 years. They've helped build America by working on railroads, farms, and lumber mills. Sikhs have served in the U.S. Congress and in both World War I and World War II.
You'll find Sikhs in all different walks of life. Teachers, attorneys, scientists, mechanics, airplane pilots, entertainers, businessmen, and, well, just about anything else you can imagine. Let's explore the history of Sikhism.
Okay, Josh. Sikhism began with the teachings of Guru Nanak.
Did you know the word guru means teacher?
Guru Nanak saw people being denied basic human rights because of their social status. He taught of equality, hard work, honesty, and community service as the basis of leading a good life.
And Sikhism is not a form of Hinduism or Islam, which are also other major religions of India. It's a separate faith with its own unique identity.
Sikhs can be recognized by their common last names.
For example, Sikh men have the last name of Singh, which means lion, and Sikh women have the last name of Kaur, which means princess. This gives men and women equal status in society. Apple?
Thank you, Alex. Sikh Americans can also be recognized by their physical appearances. The men and boys wear putkas or turbans, and all Sikhs wear steel bracelets.
To learn more, let's ask a typical Sikh family. Come on, let's go.
Sat Sri Akal. I'm very impressed that you're familiar with our traditional Sikh greeting.
Of course. We are cultural explorers.
Could you tell us about the turban and the patka and the steel bracelet?
Sure, we'd love to. Let's start with the steel bracelet. It's called a kara. The kara is worn around the wrist. It signifies strength and unity with God.
And the turban and the patka?
Sikhs do not cut their hair. Men wear turbans and beards like me, and boys wear patkas like Ranjit.
And do Sikh women ever wear turbans?
Turban is optional for women. Some choose to wear it. Generally, girls don't wear turban and often braid their hair.
Ranjit, would you like to help me show them how to tie the turban and patka?
Sure.
Do you have a mirror?
Sure, right over there.
Wow, that's long. Feet 5 inches. That's right about 5 meters.
The turban is prepared and worn every day.
It is not a hat or a cap that can be removed and put on casually.
His turban's gray, but I've seen lots of other colors. Is there a special meaning behind the color?
No, not really. It can be any color, but usually it's a matter of taste.
The turban represents honor and dignity for all Sikhs.
8 minutes, 20 seconds. Wow.
Are you ready to demonstrate the patka?
Sure.
Come.
Do boys wear patkas from the time they're born?
Josh, they need to have enough hair first. They need to make a top knot. Before the patka is worn, the hair is combed out, gently rolled, and tied into a top knot.
Then the putka is worn over the head to keep the hair groomed and neatly in place.
I'd just like to add, the turban and putka are not hats. They are special articles of faith, and they should be respected. You should never touch or pull on someone's turban or putka. That would be highly disrespectful.
That's important. We all want to be respected.
Wow, that was really interesting. Thanks for helping us understand.
You're very welcome.
We've enjoyed being here.
Bye.
Wow, people move really fast around here.
So Josh, did you have any questions?
Do I ever? First, do the Sikhs have a holy book, like the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran?
Yeah, but different. The sacred book of the Sikh faith is called the Guru Granth Sahib. It is considered to be a living guru or spiritual teacher. So what's your other question?
Do they have a place of worship like other faiths?
Yeah, Josh. A Sikh place of worship is called a Gurdwara. The most well-known Gurdwara is called the Golden Temple, and it is in the holy city of Amritsar in India.
Wow, I can totally see why they call it the Golden Temple.
It's in the middle of a beautiful reflecting pool. There are 4 open doors, one on each side. They represent an openness to all who wish to come.
Just like America.
That's the outside. Let's take a look at what happens on the inside of a Gurdwara. To be respectful, there are 3 things people do upon entering a Gurdwara.
1, remove their shoes.
2, cover their heads.
And 3, bow in reverence to the Guru Granth Sahib before sitting with the congregation.
Music plays a very important part in the Sikh worship service. Many of the hymns from the Guru Granth Sahib are performed by resident priests called ragis. The 2 ragis on the left are playing the harmonium, an instrument similar to an accordion.
And the tabla is similar to a small drum set.
After the worship service, everyone has a communal meal called langar in the community eating hall.
This meal is prepared by volunteers from the congregation.
To symbolize equal status, everyone sits together on the floor.
Common langar foods include lentils, beans, peas, spinach, flatbread, and salad.
God. That's delicious.
Josh.
Oh, sorry. That was delicious. So tell me, what else goes on in a Gurdwara?
Plenty. One thing I found very interesting was the Dastar Bandi, or the turban tying ceremony.
When a Sikh boy reaches the age of 11 or 12, a turban tying ceremony is performed. Family and friends come to join in this very important celebration.
It's a big moment in a young boy's life. You might say a coming of age or rite of passage.
This ceremony, the child's first turban is tied on by a Sikh elder.
From then on, boys tie their own turbans. That's cool. He looks so proud.
Wow, we have learned so many things about Sikhs. Their origins, their history, their faith, their ceremonies. Now let's talk about their festivals.
Great, because I am ready to celebrate. Let's talk about Vaisakhi! Yeah! Woo! These dancers are performing a traditional Punjabi dance called Bhangra. It is known for its bright colors and high energy. Every spring, Sikhs gather together to celebrate the beginning of harvest in Punjab.
Every spring, Sikhs gather to celebrate the beginning of the harvest in Punjab. There's dancing, great food, games, and special treats for kids and grown-ups. Other popular festivals or celebrations are associated with the life of Guru Nanak and the 9 gurus that followed him.
Well, guys, I think we're just about out of time. I sure learned a lot. Josh, what did you learn about the Sikh culture today?
I learned that it's all about the number 5.
The number 5?
Yeah. Sikhism is the world's 5th largest religion. There are 500,000 Sikhs in America. The religion started 500 years ago. They have 5 basic beliefs, and it all began in the 5 Rivers area of Punjab.
Wow, I never thought about it that way, Josh. Thanks.
No worries.
We hope you have all found the Sikh culture as fascinating as we have. Being a cultural explorer is so much fun, and all of you can be cultural explorers too.
Until next time,
respect the differences in others.
Get to know those around you from different cultures.
And remember, it's important to appreciate the differences in everyone. Hey, the more you know, the more you grow.
Happy exploring!
So Josh, what culture are we going to explore next?
Yeah, come on. Ready?
Yeah.
Yeah!
What? Where are we going? What, you're not going to tell me? Come on. No? What, you guys, come on. What do you mean? Check it out. What? No.
I believe that the video that you saw was an excellent example of really increasing cultural awareness. This video is being shown to different school teachers in schools, different associations. I saw it at a Sikh Awareness Day down at the West Sacramento Temple. So it's important for people to really understand about the Sikh community and to be able to connect the dots so they can find out what the unique challenges that a Sikh has and trying just to be a good American. Now, Professor Bindra has a passion, and it's other than having this 12 turbans that I'm sure that are lovely, you know, and taking care of his beautiful, beautiful wife. What is your main focus now? I mean, other than being the trustee at the temple, you have a specific focus right now.
You see, even though Sikhs have been in this country for 112 years at least, and their turbans look them different, yet, you know, there is nothing in the school textbooks about the Sikhs, and this cannot be there because the curriculum framework and the content standards for history, social science do not have the word Sikh. So my effort is to get these documents, you know, the curriculum framework and the content standards revised so they will have the word Sikh, and then the publishers will be obliged to mention about the Sikhs as they do about all the other major religions.
Right, and not just have it as a footnote. That's really important. I know there's been a pushback on some of your projects because of the budget in California, and we do understand that. Now, for our viewers, I certainly, first of all, want to thank the very knowledgeable Dr. Professor Bindra. He's been wonderful. He's passionate about what he does. He's been really, really concerned about putting an excellent product out there. The last two episodes you've seen, part 1 and part 2, we gave you an overview of the Sikh religion, its belief, and the history. We talked today about famous Sikhs and trailblazers, misconceptions and hate crimes and the issues associated with that, and then cultural awareness. You just saw the video from the Carr Foundation, and understand that Dr. Bindra is dedicated with getting Sikhism properly placed into our educational framework. It's our hope and desire that you learned an awful lot during this particular episode that we've given you, and you'll be able to share this information. If you're unclear about something, go up to a Sikh individual and ask them, you know, and obviously in a respectful manner. Keep in mind that this is a nonprofit show, just like I'm saying every episode. If you want to see continued programming, please send your donation to RCC TV, care of A to Z with B. That's 2212 K Street, Sacramento 95816. Now, I'd like to leave you with a thought, which I'm doing all the time because I'm full of thoughts. Don't put a question mark where God has put a period. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you next week.